Thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar, Oh Snap, It Just Got Real Again, which will focus on daily stressors related to academic demands and social challenges. Tonight, we're happy to have joining us Mrs. Tawana Fortune, Supervisor of Strategic Initiatives, Equity, and Social Emotional Learning, Mrs. Audra Jeffries, Supervisor of School Counseling, Department of Teaching and Learning, Mrs. Meredith Moore, School Psychologist, Department of Exceptional Learning, and Ms. Kristen Lewis, School Social Worker, Department of Exceptional Learning. Our wonderful panelists will assist me in providing information to you tonight, as well as answer any questions that you may have this evening. Our agenda will cover anxiety and depression, which includes the definition, types, symptoms, triggers, and impacts on youth, in-school behaviors, executive functioning, and organizational planning, as well as resources within our community. We are asking all attendees to please place your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. We will answer all questions at the end of the webinar. Please note that this webinar is being recorded for use on our YouTube channel. At this time, I would like to turn the program over to Mrs. Fortune. Welcome, Ms. Fortune.
Good afternoon. We are so happy that you all are here this evening to learn more about mental health wellness. So as we move forward, if you have notes, you have paper and pencil, make sure that you take some notes. We're going to have some resources at the end. So if you have your cell phone and you want to take some snapshots of what we have, those things will be available. But what we're going to do now is just talk about what is anxiety and what is depression when we think about it in a school setting. If we could move forward. Next slide, please. What is anxiety? Okay. Could we go back, please? Thank you. So anxiety is a disorder, all right? It involves extreme worry, fear, and it can include generalized anxiety disorder, also panic disorder and panic attacks, agoraphobia, social anxiety disorder, select mutism, separation anxiety, and other specific areas of concern. So after reading that definition of anxiety, this tends to hold a lot of different feelings that perhaps many of you have incurred yourself. What we're going to do is talk about the different types of disorders that can fall up under the title of anxiety. So when we talk about the first, we're going to look at post-traumatic stress disorder. And that is a disorder that usually happens after a potentially traumatic type of event that's beyond what we would call a typical stressor. When we think about PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, we think about violent personal assaults, sometimes natural or human-caused disasters, sometimes accidents, combats, and or other forms of violence. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a disorder that can be provided to students in the event that there has been some type of significant traumatic experience for them. The next disorder that we'd like to talk about is social anxiety. Social anxiety is a very common type of anxiety disorder. And a person with social anxiety feels symptoms of anxiety, they feel fear in certain and sometimes all situations. Sometimes it could be meeting new people, sometimes it could be dating, sometimes it could be a job interview, sometimes it could actually be standing before a class and doing an assignment or answering questions. Let's move to panic disorder. Now, panic disorder is a different type of anxiety disorder, and sometimes it's unexpected and repeated. It comes over and over again, and it's an intense fear. And sometimes we have physical symptoms of what we call a panic disorder, or some people may call it a panic attack. Sometimes you can have chest pains, heart palpitations, shortness of breath, sometimes dizziness and some abdominal distress. Sometimes these episodes have a trigger, and we know exactly what made that panic attack happen. And sometimes they can just somewhat occur out of the blue with an unknown stressor at that time until perhaps a therapeutic intervention is noted and we find out what the trigger is. The next we want to talk about is obsessive compulsive disorder. And that's a common chronic, but it's long lasting when we think about disorders. A lot of times it's uncontrollable, it's reoccurring, and it's thought sometimes, it's also actions. And sometimes you think about what we call OCD. It's things like washing hands repeatedly or repeatedly checking the doors to make sure that they're locked. Or sometimes it's even hoarding. So when we talk about OCD, those things can show up in the classroom as well. Like a student who constantly erases, we're thinking that perhaps it's a level of perfection, but perhaps it is a level of OCD. And the last that we want to talk about is that generalized anxiety disorder, or what we call GAD. And that has excessive worry, it has excessive anxiety, and a variety of events or activities that it can occur in work, it can occur in school, it can occur in all types of performances. But the one thing it is about a generalized anxiety disorder is that it has to last at least 6 months. Sometimes people who have anxiety disorders find that it's difficult to control their worry. They're what we call worry warts. They worry a lot about the things that occur. Sometimes it can impact their social interactions, that what we call interpersonal relationship skills. It can impact their occupation, sometimes in the work zone, or even in the school zone, and it can impact other areas of their functioning as well. So as we move to the next slide, we're going to talk about some strategies and what we call internal talking points that can help students. So sometimes when students are having anxiety, some things that we can do is just take a time out. Sometimes you have to remove yourself from that environment, especially if you're having environmental triggers. And sometimes just moving yourself from that, perhaps sometimes if you're in the home environment and you just go outside and take some deep breaths, that can come back and to help regulate your heart rate and your breathing rate. Talking to someone will definitely support your anxiety. Taking deep breaths, because again, that regulates your heart rate. Recognizing your triggers. One thing that we have to figure out is what is the trigger for the anxiety? What is actually occurring? Sometimes it's internal and sometimes it's external. We always tell students to try to do their best and do something that they enjoy, because that could be a level of distraction for them. Eating healthy is certainly, definitely one of the main components of any mental health wellness activity or intervention, and maintaining a positive attitude. And also just understanding what things can I control and what things can I not control. Gaining that acceptance of knowing what things are in the realm of me being able to say, okay, I can control that. And perhaps there are some things that I can't control, and trying to figure out some strategies to help you with that. Next slide. So when we talk about depression, we can have depression as a major depressive disorder or clinical. It's common, but it can be considered a serious mood disorder. It can impact the way you feel, the way you think, and how you handle your daily activities, such as sleeping, eating, or working. The symptoms must be present for at least 2 weeks. So when we think about teen depression isn't really a weakness or something that they can overcome with willpower. And I know a lot of times, when we think about depression, we think about sleeping habits being off, eating habits being off, and parents might say, I just need for you to snap out of it. Well, sometimes when we think about depression can be biological, which means that there is a chemical imbalance in the brain, and perhaps them getting out of bed is really a struggle. Or sometimes it can be situational or environmental. So when we think about especially teen depression, we have to always know that those symptoms can be eased with treatment when we think about medication and psychosocial counseling, but also it may be something that they just can't get over themselves. At this time, I'm going to turn the program over to Ms. Lerf. The symptoms of depression can involve fatigue, which means it impacts our sleeping, loss of interest or pleasure. Say, for instance, you had a student who really loved physical activity, or they had special hobbies that they like to do, or either interacting with other people. Sometimes those things can be impacted. Sometimes our students who are in depression can have conflict. So, when we think about depression with adults, we think about being withdrawn and low and sullen. However, when we think about depression with students, sometimes we go on the opposite end and their activities tend to increase. So they're easily agitated, easily frustrated, and a lot of conflict can occur. Also, there's the depressed mood as well that can impact and look at the symptoms of depression. So right now, what I'm going to do is turn this over to Ms. Lerf. I'm hoping that those slides help you to look at some of the differences and also the commonalities between anxiety and depression. Ms. Lerf.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fortune. Before we move on to the next section of our presentation, I'd like to go ahead and check in with our Q&A. Looks like we do have a couple of questions. So, Ms. Fortune, the first question, what is the best first step to take if I believe my child is experiencing anxiety or depression?
So I think the first big step for you to do as a parent, because, even though we're here and we're school personnel, and we have people here from all of the different support mechanisms, resources here, you know your child the best. You know the baseline of your child. So go back a couple of weeks and say to yourself, prior to school opening, did my child evidence those same behaviors? Were there differences in their sleeping habits? Were there differences in their eating patterns? Were there differences in their interpersonal relationship skills? And if you start to see some of those swing from what you think your baseline is, I think that is the first step for you as a parent, is to observe and to go back and sort of try to calculate that time. But the other piece is that the WH questions, like, where is this happening? Do you see this behavior only on weekdays and they're fine on the weekends? Or when does it happen? Is it just in the morning when school is about to start? And then once they get to school and get into the routine and the rituals of school, it sort of subsides. Also, where, what places, and then talk about how they feel. So I think the first thing for parents to do is to observe it, think about your own baseline, but also to talk to your child and just ask them some questions. When do you feel this way? How do you feel this way? Where do you feel this way? And that gives you a little bit more data, because sometimes students, when we came back to school, we usually give students like a 2-week period to sort of kind of move back into the school setting. Well, now we're in that 4-week, and we know with the pandemic, that definitely impacted our students transitioning back, because many of them were on virtual. So when we think about that 2 to 4 week, we're still giving our students sometimes just to acclimate to that schedule. So I think now is the time when you start saying, okay, my baseline behavior is a little bit different than what I thought it was probably last school year, which we all know can be impacted because of the pandemic and because of the way school has started out this school year. So talk to your child. That would be the first thing. And in the event that you feel that is, we're going to move on to some other resources, but perhaps connecting with your teachers just to find out if they're seeing the same types of behaviors that you're seeing in the home environment. In order to have an anxiety disorder or depression, they have to have those same clinical symptoms in many environments, not just one. So having that connection with the school is going to be so important for you to find out if there's similarities between those two environments.
Awesome, thank you. And we have sort of a similar question. How do I know if my child's anxiety needs to be treated?
That's a great question. So I would say to you that anxiety, again, can be biological and it can be situational or environmental. So in the event that you're having true concerns, perhaps the first step is just to have a basic medical checkup with your physician, your PCP, your pediatrician, just to make sure that there aren't any medical conditions. If you move through that process and your pediatric doctor says, well, I can't really find anything that's significant medically, the iron level is good, all of those things are great, then perhaps within your own insurance or your pediatrician or PCP, they can make a referral for our agencies. And within the part of our presentation, we are definitely going to give you a host of resources within the community to support you in that measure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. At this time, I would like to turn the program over to Ms. Jeffries of School Counseling.
Hello and good evening. So Ms. Fortune has talked a little bit about the different types of disorders that can occur. And so what I'm going to focus on is a little bit more about what those behaviors look like in the school setting, and what not just as teachers and educators, but also you as the parent should notice about your student, not just at home, but how they're interacting and their grades and other things that you may see in the school setting. So teen depression is a serious mental health problem that causes persistent feelings of sadness, loss of interest in activities. So if you have a child that is very active and involved, and all of a sudden, they don't want to go out with their friends, they don't want to do the things that used to bring them joy, and all of a sudden you just notice that, or sometimes you may get feedback from your child's teacher, them saying that, they're not really paying attention. And these are not normal behaviors. These are all things that should maybe, just make you question and look a little bit deeper. It doesn't mean that they're depressed, but it just means that you may need to kind of just pay attention a little bit more to kind of find out what is going on with your student, your child. Depression can occur at any time in life. Symptoms differ in teenagers and adults. So what depression looks like in an adult is going to look completely different than it does in a teenager. So things that may cause this may be peer pressure, academic expectations. Puberty is a big change. So there's a lot of hormonal changes that go on, and that can sometimes trigger depression and other disorders. Even though teenagers, it's typical for them to have ups and downs, how you tell the difference between a typical up and down and depression is that when the down is more than just a temporary state, when they are down for an extended period, that's when you may want to start considering some other things are going on. Teen depression is, as Ms. Fortune said, it's not a weakness or something that you can just overcome with willpower. A lot of times people say, oh, just get over it, it'll be okay, trying to dismiss things. And so you have to be very careful, because how we internalize things can be completely different. And so we don't want to just dismiss someone's feelings, because we want to make sure that we are really getting to the root of what is causing the issue and how they perceive it. A person may experience behavioral changes such as loss of energy, insomnia, not being able to sleep, changes in appetite. It can be eating less. It can be eating a lot more. Alcohol or drug use, agitation, social isolation, poor school performance. These, again, are all signs that a student may be depressed. Emotional changes such as sadness or anger, or extreme sadness, extreme anger, poor self-esteem, frequent thoughts of death or suicide. Those are the red flags right there. If your child is experiencing anything of those type of symptoms, you immediately need to go and seek treatment. And also, again, just making sure that you are paying attention and really just noticing any major differences or concerns in your child. Next slide, please. All right, so now that we know what these disorders look like, or what the symptoms look like, what can we do to support anxiety or depression? So exercise, regular exercise can have a profound positive impact on depression and anxiety. It can help relieve stress, improve memory, helps you sleep better, and it just boosts your overall mood. The research actually indicates that modest amounts of exercise can really make a huge difference on your mental health. Other methods include therapy, and sometimes just talking to someone. Just being able to vent and to get it out can sometimes make a huge difference. Expressing yourself and your feelings, nurturing yourself, taking that time to just really have that self-care. And also journaling has been noted as a method that can really help. Just putting it on paper, sometimes just getting it out of your brain, either out of your mouth or out on a piece of paper, can really help to just alleviate some of that tension. Okay. It's also important to know that mental disorders, they're not just isolated disorders. Sometimes they can combine. So depression can occur when a person already has anxiety. People who have PTSD are usually very prone to be depressed. People with depression can also experience, extreme worry and fear. So it's not one or the other. And in most cases, they do go hand in hand. And then sometimes it can be not just external, it can be biological. So a lot of times certain mental health disorders can just be based on your, family history. So these are all things that you just have to take into consideration when you're evaluating your student and their behaviors. But the most important takeaway is that please, have those conversations and let your child know that they should not suffer in silence. If something is wrong, they need to have that person that they can go to. So I know having teenagers, that person is not always the parent, and that's fine, but they need to know. And maybe you all need to have that conversation. Who is your go-to person? Who is that person that if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, who can you talk to, so that you know that there's someone when that red flag to kind of just make sure that they're getting all of that off, and that that person is an adult or someone that you trust to be able to get that information back to you so that you can get your student the help that they need. All right, Ms. Lerk, do we have any questions at this point?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. So the first question, is it possible that a heavy academic workload, minimal instructions, and connection with all the children in a classroom setting can be a trigger or cause depression, stress, and anxiety or other mental health issues in children?
Absolutely, especially now. So we are coming, back into school. There's some, students who have not been in the physical classroom in a while. And so it's like we are literally starting from scratch. We're learning about interactions because in some cases we've, been in the house. We haven't been around our friends and we haven't been around people. So, things as a test every week and different things that, maybe they didn't experience last year. It can be a lot. You have some students that are transitioning from elementary to middle to high. Those are stressors within itself. So imagine having to do that when you're coming off of a pandemic. So there's a lot of different things. And so all of those can be stressors. And so it's okay and it's normal for teenagers to be stressed. However, you have to know your child and notice, is this their typical or is it something abnormal? And when you see characteristics that are not normally there, that's when the red flag goes up and you need to pay a little bit more attention and possibly look at seeking some more assistance for your student.
Awesome, thank you. And one more, are school counselors available to help my child with their anxiety?
Absolutely. Now, school counselors, we, don't diagnose. However, we are the point of contact for school to be an extra set of ears. So your students should be able to, and I would encourage them to go and meet and introduce themselves to their counselor just so that before there's a need. That way they feel comfortable coming and speaking with that individual when something is not right. We are available to help, to assist. We have tons of resources and things that we can give out to the students and to the parents if there is something that can't be handled within the counseling office. So your school counselor is going to be a wonderful resource for both the teachers, the parent, and the student when things are going good and especially when things are not.
Great, thank you so much. And at this time, I would like to turn the program over to Mrs. Moore, school psychologist.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be in the next section, we're going to be talking about executive functioning. And this refers to the many functions that are mostly taking place in that frontal lobe of our brains. It is a collection of interrelated functions that are responsible for all the things we have to do on a regular basis, guiding us, directing us, managing our cognitive, our emotional, and our behavioral functions, particularly when we're having to do something brand new or novel. Under this red circle, the cognitive domain, within that red circle, we have initiate, which means, can we start a task? Can we begin a task when we have been directed to do so? We also have working memory, which basically means the capacity to hold some information in our mind for the purpose of completing a task. Children with weak working memory are often described as having trouble remembering things like phone numbers or directions, even for a few seconds. Or they lose track of what they're doing, or lose track of what they're doing as they work, as they're doing an assignment. They forget what they're doing in the middle of it. Or they forget what they're supposed to retrieve when they're sent on an errand. Next, within there is planning, organization, and monitoring our task initiation and completion are some other cognitive related executive functions. Within the behavior domain, the green circle is inhibit, and that's our ability to stop ourselves at the appropriate time. The ability to inhibit, resist, or not act upon an impulse that we may have. Self-monitor relates to our own awareness of the impact of our behavior on other people and outcomes. Children with poor self-monitoring capacities may not realize when they're annoying someone else. They may have unrealistic notions about their own abilities, and they may struggle to learn from their mistakes. The emotional regulation, that blue circle, involves the capacity to be flexible in our problem-solving approaches and to modulate or control our emotional responses. Children and adolescents with difficulties in this domain may demonstrate overblown, exaggerated emotional reactions to seemingly minor events. This could include a child who cries really easily or laughs hysterically, or a child who has frequent or severe temper tantrums, which are not age appropriate. So if you go to the next slide, more about what is executive function? It refers to the many functions of that frontal lobe of our brains. It is known as our management system. And these skills involve setting goals, planning, focusing, problem solving, and basically getting things done. As with other developmental milestones, there is normal variability in the time at which children are going to reach these milestones. Some children experience greater than normal challenges or delays related to these skills. And keep in mind that our children and adolescents do not fully have developed frontal lobes until their mid-20s. So we cannot expect our students to excel in all of these areas. And they need our support, and they need shared family experiences, time spent together, enjoying everyday activities like reading books, cooking, or dancing. And the parent-child relationship is like the most paramount. The next slide. Parents can help with executive functioning delays or difficulties in many ways. Respect their feelings, provide encouragement, and talk to your child to ask what stressors may be at play for them. And if symptoms do not improve, you can always discuss your concerns with your healthcare provider, such as your child's pediatrician or primary care physician. Offer your child praise 4 times more than you're correcting their behavior or critiquing their behavior. And this can be a daunting, difficult task, but it is critical to remember in establishing a positive approach to parenting and showing your love and support. You want to give behavior-specific praise, such as, "You did a great job putting your homework in that homework folder," or "Thank you for cleaning up the first time I asked." It's very specific on that behavior. Or, "I like how you waited until I was done talking with your brother to ask me for help." Your child may have a large project or an assignment and may need your help to break down the task into small, more manageable steps with specific timelines. And you can help your child break it down into smaller steps. Help your child create checklists and routines. Get their input while you're creating these lists and routines so that you have their buy-in. They're excited and they're going to be more motivated to use them and follow them. We want to model cognitive and emotional flexibility whenever possible. For example, if your original plan doesn't work, you could say to your child, "Well, you know what? Plan A isn't going to work. What's our plan B? What can we do instead? Can we try something different? Can we use a different strategy to solve our problem? Our first approach didn't work. Can we try something else?" So problem solve out loud with your child and then along the way, asking for their input and suggestions as you problem solve and model that flexibility. Thank you for your time. And at this time, I'd like to turn the program over to Ms. Lewis, school social worker.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kristen Lewis, and I'm a school social worker. In the spirit of engaging our communities and families and our students in regards to reducing stress, I think it is important for everyone to know what school social workers do, and because there's a lot of misconceptions. So school social workers are employed to assist in special education and that process, as well as concerns around the homeless, truancy, FACT, teams, which may not sound familiar, but they're a family assessment planning team in the city of Chesapeake. We also help with crisis response, and that's just to name a few things that we do. What we are not is child protective services. We do not have any legal authorities to remove children. We are not working for the Department of Social Security. We don't have anything to do with benefits or who qualifies for anything, nor is that our focus. One of the many things that school social workers do is to connect families and students to resources. And I think from this webinar, where we see the issues that are kind of going on, that's where we kind of come in to assist. And I think there were questions around that as far as what to do. So if you have some thoughts or ideas or you need resources, that's where school social workers can help in making those connections. So if you look at the slide, this is an example of some of the resources that we would give out. So there's Kempsville Center for Behavioral Health. That is a treatment center for children 4 to 18 years old. They provide free assessments and acute hospitalizations. They also provide residential and outpatient partial hospitalizations. Below Kempsville is Chesapeake Integrated Behavioral Health, and you might have heard the term CIBH, and that's what we often use. And this is the Community Services Board for the City of Chesapeake. The Community Services Board, Chesapeake Integrated Behavioral Health, they address issues around mental health, intellectual disabilities, developmental services for children, and substance abuse services for the citizens of Chesapeake. They provide services to children, adolescents, and adults in our community. Instead of scheduling the intake appointment in advance, you may walk in without an appointment to be seen the same day for registration and a clinical assessment. Then you would get a follow-up appointment. So they have same-day access for the citizens of Chesapeake. After the completion of the clinical assessment, you may be referred for other services, depending on your needs, such as medication management, outpatient therapy, detox services, case management, etc. CIBH provides a variety of individual and group therapy options. They accept private insurance and accept patients who are not covered by health insurance using a sliding scale fee. This agency is also responsible for 24/7 hour emergency services and crisis intervention to the citizens of Chesapeake, and has a hotline number. And I believe, well, actually I have a different number. I'm going to give it to you. It's 757-547-9334. And of course, if it was an emergency, you could certainly call the police department. So what happens here is all year round, 24/7, they are available to assist with any mental health crises in our community. Okay, the next two resources If there's NAMI up here, this is going to be an international service as well, but it's a great resource. Can't talk, sorry. This is the National Alliance on Mental Health of Coastal Virginia, and there's a telephone number that's been provided. So they have many local smaller agencies underneath them that can serve the community. So since it's national, they have smaller ones that can help locally in your communities. They provide support, education, and advocacy, just to name a few things, and they're very much advocating for mental health services as much as possible. There are, like I said, a few local chapters of NAMI in the Tidewater area. The second national resource is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which also is a 24/7 service. It's a confidential lifeline, chat, support, and resource. And so if we can go, there we go. So these are some additional resources that we have, and I know it's a lot. So I think earlier Ms. Fortune said that you could take a picture with your phone if you have it, or a screenshot on your computer. So we tried to tailor these resources to address the negative impacts of COVID, school closures, virtual learning, quarantining, illness, loss, any changes from the norm. And this is just a few of the things that we could provide our families and our citizens and the children. The school social work department has a bank of resources to assist others in a variety of areas, and are always willing to assist and support our schools, communities, and families, but especially our students. So if you need any assistance, I would first ask, or any resources, I would ask that you contact your child's school directly. Every school in the city of Chesapeake has a school social worker assigned there that can assist you. If that is not an option for you, you could call the Edward Wilson Center, and that telephone number is 494-7600. That is our home base, I should say. We try very much to be in our schools and be present. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. At this time, I'm going to turn it back to Mrs. Carey. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Before we conclude, we would like to take an opportunity to answer any last-minute questions. While we give you a chance to answer or enter those questions in the Q&A, I'd like to ask Ms. Fortune to give us closing reflections. Ms. Fortune?
So we thank you all for participating in this webinar tonight, and we have given you loads and loads of information, loads and loads of symptoms and causes. We've talked a lot about anxiety and depression. We've talked about school-based behaviors, executive functioning, and resources for our schools, for our agency resources. But, you know, at the end of the day, parents, you lead the charge, as is indicated, and partnership is the key. Making sure that you are interconnecting with the schools to let us know what's going on with your child is so important. As Mrs. Jeffries indicated, if you're having some concerns and you want the school counselor to just have some feedback with you about your child, that is absolutely a service that can be rendered. We too have the school social workers, school psychologists, who are there to provide those assistance to students who may be having some significant behavioral responses. But at the end of the day, we are still the institution of education. We are not mental health facilities, so we can't, as Mrs. Jeffries indicated, provide any mental health counseling because we don't have the licensed professionals for that. But we are certainly able to provide those types of services that are impacting their school-based behaviors, their academic, their social emotional, their performance levels, their interpersonal relationship skills. So we ask that you partner with the schools and make sure that you let the students know that the school is there for them, and to let you all know that we are also there for you. The one thing that I do want to just really say at the end of this is that if you're really feeling uncertain about your child and you absolutely feel that your child is in some type of emotional crises, There are some things that you can do. You can always take your child to the emergency room to have what we call a mental health wellness check to make sure that your child is not at harm for hurting self or hurting someone else. You could call 911 in the event that you have a crisis going on in your home. And of course, we provided those resources for you. But anytime you have a situation where your child is at the point of self-harm, please make sure that you follow through with that. Those are significant indicators of anxiety, depression, or what we call comorbidity. It could be a little bit of both. So with that being said, Laura, we're going to ask, do we have any other questions that we need to answer at this time?
We do have a couple questions. The first one, Ms. Lewis, you might want to take this one. I didn't know schools had social workers. How do I connect with my child's school social worker?
Awesome. I'm trying to get on here. Here we go. I am not surprised, and I hear that a lot, and people are surprised. I wish we had a way of advertising the things that we have for everyone. But yes, the city of Chesapeake has always had, and all schools have, school social workers. So again, what I would suggest that you do is contact your school, anyone in your office, and definitely the administration would know exactly who the school social workers are for your school district. Or again, you could call the Edward Wilson Center, and the telephone number is 494-7600. And all you would need to do is just ask, who is the school social worker for whatever your child's school is, and they would be able to give you that information. Does that help?
Yes, that's very helpful.
I'm sorry, I'm asking for a response. Thank you.
You're good. Thank you so much. We also had a question about where we can find the recording of this session, and I can go ahead and answer that. The recording of this webinar will be uploaded to the Chesapeake Public Schools YouTube channel in about a week or so. So you will be able to watch the recorded session there. And then we have one last question. What options do parents have for students experiencing testing anxiety and need extra time, but have been told that extra time cannot be given except with accommodations? Ms. Fortune, do you want to take that one? Or Ms. Moore?
So could you repeat that question for me?
Absolutely. What options do parents have for students experiencing testing anxiety and need extra time, but have been told that extra time cannot be given except with accommodations?
Okay, well, yes, I would say have that conversation with your child's team of teachers or the individual teacher, and just keep that communication open, because you all are on the, your partners in your child's education. So I would just suggest some of those things, and then the things that we've suggested to help with anxiety and executive functioning. Main if you have a big test that you're studying for, you could help your child study a little bit each night, so that when the test day came, it wouldn't be as overwhelming, because you've been practicing the skills and having those discussions a little bit each night to help them study and help help alleviate some of that test anxiety.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. We appreciate that. This concludes tonight's, go ahead, Ms. Fortune, did you want to say something?
Yeah, one more resource that we did not mention is CHKD. CHKD has a wonderful mental health wellness department, and they too offer all types of services for students. So I know we indicated the Kempsville Center for Behavioral Health, we indicated CIBH, we indicated the National Suicide Hotline and NAMI, but we certainly want to indicate that CHKD is definitely a partner with all of the school divisions in the Hampton Tidewater region. So please, if that is a source for you and you already have pediatric care there, that is certainly a resource that you can reach out to.
Yes, I agree. And they also offer a variety of free webinars for parents to take a look at too. Thank you very much. Well, this concludes tonight's webinar, and I would like to thank all of my panelists for their assistance with getting this information out to our families. We hope that families have a better understanding of the daily stressors related to an academic and social demands placed on our children, in addition to supports that are in place to help our children and their families cope. If you need further information or would like to discuss your child's concerns, please reach out to your child's school counselor to schedule an appointment. As previously stated, this webinar has been recorded and will be uploaded to Chesapeake Public Schools YouTube channel within the next several days. Thank you for joining us this evening, and remember, families and communities work better together. Have a great evening.